Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world, coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for. In today's video, we are going to uncover one of the most talked about modern Lincoln penny anomalies in the numismatic world, the 2009 D-Mint Mark Lincoln cent error coin that has reportedly been associated with extraordinary valuations reaching as high as $899,000 in rare high-grade and error-confirmed conditions. Before you dismiss this as just another penny, stay with me, because what you're about to hear could change the way you look at every coin sitting in jars, drawers, and old collections across America. This is not just about money, it's about awareness, timing, and recognizing value where others see nothing. Now imagine this for a moment. You are casually sorting through an old coffee can of change, maybe something passed down from a parent or forgotten in storage for years. You're half distracted, thinking it's all just loose pennies and nickels. And then suddenly, something catches your eye. A 2009 Lincoln cent. It looks normal at first glance. But it is not. That small detail, that mint mark, that strike error, that subtle difference most people would never notice, could be the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing payday. And here's the real question. How many people have already spent it without ever knowing? Let's step into the story behind this coin. The 2009 Lincoln cent series was released to celebrate Abraham Lincoln's 200th birth anniversary, featuring 4 unique reverse designs honoring different chapters of Lincoln's life. These coins were minted in both Philadelphia and Denver, with the D-Mint mark representing Denver production. At first, millions of Americans handled them like ordinary change. No excitement, no urgency, just another penny in circulation. But in the world of rare coins, history has a way of hiding treasure in plain sight. Now here is where things take a dramatic turn. Certain 2009 D Lincoln cents have reportedly surfaced with unusual characteristics, including striking errors, die variations, and in some rare cases, misalignments or anomalies that collectors aggressively pursue. And when we say aggressively, we mean it. The rare coin market is not casual anymore. It is competitive, global, and highly driven by collectors who understand scarcity at a professional level. And when scarcity meets demand, prices don't just rise. They explode. Let me pause for a second here. If you're thinking, it's just a penny, I want you to reconsider that thought for a moment. Because that exact mindset is what has caused some of the greatest coin discoveries in US history to be spent, lost, or ignored. Funny thought, isn't it? The same coin you might use to balance a parking meter could be the one a collector would fly across the country to buy. That's the reality of this market. Now, about the valuation that has been circulating in collector discussions and online listings. Some rare error versions and high-grade specimens associated with the 2009 D Lincoln cent series have been reported to reach extremely high speculative valuations, with figures as high as $899,000 mentioned in rare auction or listing contexts. It is important to understand that such figures typically apply only to exceptional, verified, and often professionally graded specimens with unique mint errors and pristine condition. These are not everyday coins. They are the extreme outliers, the once-in-a-generation discoveries that create headlines. But here's where the excitement turns into urgency. Most people do not check their coins properly. They don't understand mint marks. They don't look for doubling, misstrikes, or die cracks. They don't weigh their coins or compare subtle design differences. And that gap in knowledge is exactly where opportunity lives. Because while most people ignore pennies, a small group of collectors and dealers are actively searching every day, paying premium prices for the right find. And let me ask you something directly. If a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars was sitting in front of you right now, would you recognize it? Or would it look like just another penny? That question is not meant to scare you, but to wake you up to how subtle wealth can be hidden in everyday life. The 2009 D Lincoln cent error discussion has grown because of one simple truth. Modern coins are still being discovered in rare varieties. Unlike ancient coins that are long removed from circulation, these are relatively recent, meaning they can still appear in pocket change, estate collections, or forgotten jars. That is what makes this category so powerful. It is not locked in museums. It is still moving through hands. Now let's connect this to something even more important. Wealth in numismatics is not just about owning coins. It is about timing and awareness. Those who understood the value of rare mint errors early were able to build serious collections and, in some cases, life-changing returns. Those who ignored them often realized too late, after the coins were already gone. Here's a moment of truth, and I want you to really pay attention. If you had started collecting or even simply checking your coins a decade ago, you might already be sitting on assets that have multiplied significantly in value. That is not speculation, that is how scarcity markets behave. And today, the same opportunity mindset still exists, but it is shrinking as more people become aware. Let's talk about what makes collectors so interested in coins like the 2009 Lincoln cent era varieties. It is a combination of condition, rarity, minting anomalies, and demand pressure. When a coin has something unusual, whether it is a double die, an off-center strike, or an unexpected minting flaw, it becomes a target. And once it is confirmed and graded, competition among buyers can drive values dramatically higher. Now I want you to imagine something. Picture a collector at an auction, hands slightly shaking, watching the price climb. Not because the coin is gold, not because it is ancient, but because it is rare. That is the emotional engine of this market. Fear of missing out, excitement of discovery, urgency of competition. It is not just collecting, it is pursuit. And here's the twist most people don't expect. Some of the most valuable coins in circulation are not the oldest. They are not always silver or gold. Sometimes they are modern pennies that passed through millions of hands unnoticed. That is what makes this so powerful and so overlooked at the same time. So what should you do with this information? First, awareness. Start looking at your change differently. Second, knowledge. Learn what mint marks, errors, and grading actually mean. And third, action. Because opportunities like this do not improve with hesitation. They disappear into circulation, never to be seen again. Before we close, let me leave you with this thought. Somewhere right now in America, there is a coin sitting in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten box that could represent a life-changing discovery. The only question is whether it will be recognized in time. And maybe, just maybe, the next discovery story could start with you. Most people walk past pennies every single day without ever realizing they might be holding a life-changing piece of American history in the palm of their hand. A coin so small it barely buys anything today. Yet in rare cases, it has shocked collectors with values that reach extraordinary levels in the numismatic market. And right now, there is one particular modern Lincoln cent that has been creating intense attention among collectors and enthusiasts. The 2016 no-mint mark Lincoln penny era variety, which in rare conditions has been discussed in collector circles with valuations reported as high as significant 5- and 6-figure ranges, with some extreme claims reaching far beyond that depending on condition, authenticity, and market demand. Now, before you dismiss this as just another coin story, stay with me because what you're about to discover could completely change how you look at loose change forever. And yes, I mean forever. This is not just about a penny. This is about awareness, timing, and opportunity. And if you've ever said, I wish I had invested earlier, or I wish I paid attention sooner, then this story is going to hit differently. We start with Act 1, the discovery. Imagine sitting at your kitchen table late in the evening, sorting through coins from a jar that's been collecting dust for years. Nothing special at first glance. Pennies, nickels, change from grocery runs, gas stations, everyday life. You're about to give up when something catches your eye. A Lincoln cent dated 2016. But something feels off. There is no mint mark where there should be one. You pause. You squint. You flip it under the light again. And suddenly, your mind starts asking the question most people ignore. What if this is something? Now here's where most people make a mistake. They laugh it off. They spend it. They toss it back into circulation. And just like that, opportunity disappears without a sound. But a rare few, they investigate. And that investigation is where ordinary life starts turning into something extraordinary. Now let me stop you for a second. Have you ever checked your pocket change this carefully? Or are you letting potential wealth slip through your fingers every single day without realizing it? Because that's exactly how most discoveries begin. Not in vaults, not in auctions, but in ordinary homes. Now we move into Act 2, the rarity and the rush. The 2016 Lincoln cent without a mint mark has gained attention because mint mark errors or missing identifiers can sometimes signal unusual production anomalies. In the world of coin collecting, anomalies are not mistakes. They are opportunities. They are the cracks where value is born. Collectors and enthusiasts often examine these coins under magnification, looking for strike errors, die variations, and minting inconsistencies. In rare cases, coins with verified mint errors, strong condition grades, and authenticated characteristics have sold for surprising premiums in the collector market. And this is where things get exciting, because once word spreads about a potential error coin, demand rises fast. And when demand rises, opportunity doesn't wait. It accelerates. Think about it. One collector tells another, then another. Listings appear. Auctions heat up. Suddenly a coin that was once invisible becomes the center of attention. But here's the truth most people don't realize. Value is not just about age. It is about rarity, condition, and verification. A coin like this, if authentic and properly graded, can attract serious collector interest. And in some reported cases within the broader rare coin market, high-grade mint error coins have reached extremely strong valuations depending on demand and certification. Some listings and discussions in the collector community have even speculated high-end figures reaching into the hundreds of thousands under exceptional circumstances, though these outcomes are rare and always dependent on professional authentication. Now let's pause again, because this is where excitement turns into urgency. If something like this exists in circulation, how many people are unknowingly spending it right now? How many times has a rare coin passed through a cashier's hand, completely unnoticed? That thought alone should make you look twice the next time you receive change. And here's the twist. Most valuable coins are not found by experts. They are found by everyday people who simply paid attention. Now Act 3, the transformation. This is where everything comes together. You're no longer just someone with pocket change. You are someone who understands hidden value. You understand that wealth is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, sitting in jars, drawers, old boxes, and forgotten collections. The difference between someone who misses opportunity and someone who finds it is awareness. But there is one critical step that separates excitement from real-world value: authentication. Professional grading services, coin experts, and verified marketplaces exist for one reason: to confirm what is real and what is not. Because in the world of rare coins, condition and authenticity are everything. A coin that looks valuable but is not verified is just curiosity. But a coin that is authenticated, graded, and market demanded becomes something entirely different. It becomes an asset. And assets are what build wealth over time. Now let's bring this back to you. Right now, somewhere in your home, there could be coins you've ignored for years. A jar, a drawer, a box you never opened. And inside that ordinary collection could be something that others in the collector world are actively searching for. Let me ask you something directly. What would change in your life if you discovered even one rare coin worth significantly more than face value? Or would you start looking at every penny like it might be the one? Because here is the truth that experienced collectors already know. Opportunities like this do not announce themselves twice. They appear quietly, and they leave quietly. And the people who benefit are the ones who act while others hesitate. So the next time you receive change, the next time you open that old coin jar, remember this moment. Because awareness is not just knowledge, it is advantage. And in a world where most people overlook value hiding in plain sight, advantage becomes everything. Now before you go, understand this clearly. The rare coin market is dynamic and values can vary based on condition, demand, and certification. Any serious discovery should always be professionally evaluated before assumptions are made. But the opportunity to explore, to check, and to learn is always in your hands. And that is where your journey begins. And maybe, just maybe, the next penny you hold won't just be change. In the quiet world of pocket change, where most people barely glance at a penny before tossing it aside, there exists a hidden layer of American currency that can change lives in an instant. What you are about to hear is not ordinary coin talk. It is a deep dive into one of the most talked about modern Lincoln cent anomalies, the 2015 no-mint mark Lincoln penny error that collectors and dealers whisper about with serious excitement, and in some rare discussions, it has been associated with staggering valuations reportedly reaching as high as $934,000 for exceptional verified error specimens. Now before you dismiss this as just another coin story, stay with me. Because most people who overlook pennies today are the same people who, years later, realized they were holding something extraordinary in their hands and let it slip away for 1 cent of face value. This is the story of how that happens. And how you make sure it doesn't happen to you. It is 2015. Millions of Lincoln pennies are being struck and released into circulation across the United States. People use them for parking meters, store counters, jars on dressers, and forgotten cup holders in old trucks. To the average eye, there is nothing special here. Just copper-plated zinc coins, each stamped with Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. Most of them carry either a P for Philadelphia or a D for Denver. But here is where things start to get interesting, because not everything that leaves the mint leaves perfectly. Now imagine this. A single penny slips through the massive machinery of production with something missing. No mint mark, no obvious identifier, just a clean, subtle anomaly that most people would never think twice about. It enters circulation quietly, like a secret the system didn't catch, and here's where the emotional weight hits. What if that coin is still out there, sitting in a jar, passed through hands at a grocery store, or forgotten in a coin roll from a bank? Most people don't realize it, but the difference between a normal penny and a rare error can be the difference between 1 cent and life-changing money. And yes, let's pause for a second, because here's the question most viewers ask at this point. Are you seriously telling me a penny could be worth more than a house? The answer is simple. In rare numismatic cases, absolutely. Now we move into Act 2. Discovery, tension, and rising value. Collectors began noticing something unusual about certain 2015 Lincoln cents. While most were standard production strikes, a small number appeared with anomalies that should not exist under normal mint conditions. In numismatics, this is where attention sharpens. Because errors are not random accidents in value, they are rare disruptions in perfection. The 2015 no mint mark cent, especially when tied to specific striking conditions or minting anomalies, became a subject of debate among collectors. Some examples surfaced through auctions and private sales, with prices ranging widely depending on condition, strike quality, and authentication. And this is where excitement turns into urgency. Because in the world of rare coins, timing matters, condition matters, and knowledge matters even more. Picture this for a moment. A collector sitting at a kitchen table, turning a penny under a lamp. Nothing fancy, just a small copper coin. But under magnification, something unusual appears. A subtle difference, a missing marker, a strike anomaly that shouldn't be there. That single moment, often dismissed by most people as probably nothing, is the moment that separates ordinary change from extraordinary wealth. And here's a reality check that might surprise you. Many of the most valuable modern coin discoveries were not found in vaults or museums. They were found in circulation, in change jars, in inherited collections that sat untouched for decades. Now let's add a little humor here, because honestly, it's almost ironic. People will spend 20 minutes searching for discount codes online to save $5, but won't spend 10 seconds checking a coin that could potentially be worth thousands or even more. That's the gap between awareness and opportunity. As reports and collector discussions circulated, some exceptional examples of rare Lincoln cent errors, especially those in pristine, uncirculated condition and professionally graded, were said to command extremely high figures in competitive markets. In the most dramatic cases discussed among enthusiasts, values have been cited approaching the high hundreds of thousands, and in rare headline-grabbing situations even around the $900,000 range depending on provenance and demand. But here is the key point most people miss. It is never just about the date. It is about the combination of rarity, condition, and verification. This is where fear quietly enters the story. Because right now, there are thousands of people who have old coin jars sitting at home, completely unaware that what they consider spare change might actually contain a hidden asset. And every day that passes, coins get spent, lost, damaged, or overlooked. That means opportunity is shrinking. And now we transition into Act 3, realization, action, and transformation. If you are watching this, you are already ahead of the majority. Because awareness is the first filter that separates collectors from casual holders. The next step is inspection. Not speculation, not guessing, inspection. Look at your pennies, not with a quick glance, but with intention. Check dates. Look for anomalies. Compare mint marks. Study the surfaces under good lighting. Because the truth is, the most valuable discoveries often don't look valuable at first glance. And here's a powerful truth that seasoned collectors understand deeply. Coins don't announce their worth. You have to uncover it. This is where your mindset shifts. From "it's just a penny" to "what if this is the one?" And that question changes everything. Imagine sitting down one evening, sorting through a small pile of coins, and suddenly noticing something off. A detail that doesn't match the rest. Your pulse slightly quickens. You double-check, then triple-check, and then the realization sets in you may be holding something rare. That moment is not just about money. It is about discovery, about realizing that value can exist in the most overlooked places. Now, let's bring this full circle. The 2015 Lincoln Cent no mint mark variety, along with other related minting anomalies, represents something bigger than just a coin. It represents the hidden economy of collectibles, a world where knowledge transforms everyday objects into high-value assets. And while not every penny will be worth a fortune, the few that are can be absolutely life-changing. So here is the final thought I want to leave you with. Most people will finish watching this and do nothing. They will go back to their day, ignore their change jars, and forget this conversation ever happened. But a small percentage will do something different. They will check. They will look. They will pay attention. And in the world of rare coins, that small difference is exactly where fortunes are found. Because somewhere out there, in an old drawer, a coin jar, or a forgotten box, a simple Lincoln penny may already be waiting for the right set of eyes. Today, I want you to stop for a moment and look at the change sitting in your house, your car, your old jars, and even that forgotten drawer in the kitchen, because what you are about to hear could quietly change the way you look at a single penny forever. Not metaphorically, literally. One small copper coin, overlooked by millions, has been reported in rare numismatic circles and high-end collector discussions to reach values as high as $923,000 in exceptional condition. And if that number just made you sit up a little straighter, good. That reaction matters because most people miss life-changing opportunities for one simple reason: they never pay attention to what's already in their hands. Now imagine this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through a handful of coins. Nothing special. Pennies, nickels, loose change. You're half watching TV, not expecting anything. And then you see it. A 2003 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first, it looks like every other penny. Ordinary, forgettable, almost boring. But something feels slightly off. That tiny detail, missing where it should say D or P, is where the entire story begins. And here's where most people make a costly mistake. They dismiss it. They spend it. They lose it forever in a vending machine transaction worth nothing, when in rare cases that same coin could be sitting in the upper tier of collector demand, where scarcity and error collide to create serious value. Let's slow this down and break it open, because the truth behind the 2003 Lincoln penny no mint mark error is not just about money. It's about awareness, timing, and understanding how modern minting mistakes can sometimes slip through a system designed to be perfect. In the early 2000s, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln pennies every year. Massive quantities, highly automated systems, precision at scale. But when humans and machines interact at that level of speed, perfection is never absolute. And that's where error coins are born. Missing mint marks, misstrikes, die variations. These are not just mistakes. In the world of collectors, they are anomalies. And anomalies are where value begins. Now, before you think every 2003 penny is secretly worth a fortune, pause for a second. Here's a quick reality check, because I don't want you chasing pocket change illusions. Most 2003 Lincoln pennies with no mint mark are not rare. The majority are common circulation coins with no significant premium. But, and this is where things get interesting, there are specific, documented error variations and high-grade specimens that have attracted serious collector attention, especially when preserved in near-perfect mint state condition or linked to verified minting anomalies. And this is where fear enters the picture for most people. Not fear of danger, but fear of missed opportunity. Because somewhere out there, someone has already spent one. Someone else unknowingly dropped one into a tip jar. And another person might have it sitting in a coffee can right now, completely unaware they're holding a coin that collectors actively search for. Wait, Quick question. If you had a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, would you even recognize it before it left your hand? The 2003 Lincoln penny no mint mark discussion usually centers around Philadelphia struck coins. Philadelphia mint coins often do not carry a mint mark by design in certain years, which is where confusion begins. Many people assume no mint mark automatically means error. But in numismatics, context is everything. A true error coin must show something beyond normal production expectations, such as a misapplied die, transitional strike anomalies, doubled features, or unusual planchet characteristics. And this is where the excitement builds. Because when a genuine mint error is verified, the coin stops being pocket change and becomes a collectible asset. Piece of history, a documented mistake from one of the most powerful mints in the world. Now let's add another layer, the market psychology. Collectors don't just buy coins. They compete for them. They chase rarity. They chase condition. And when a coin gains attention, especially one tied to modern error speculation, the demand curve shifts quickly. Auction listings, private sales, and collector forums can amplify perceived value dramatically, especially when a coin is graded in top-tier condition by professional grading services. And yes, in some reported high-end scenarios involving rare mint state errors or exceptional preservation quality, figures approaching the hundreds of thousands have been discussed. But here's the key insight most people miss: value is not just about existence, it is about verification, grading, and demand convergence at a specific moment in time. Let me pause here for a second because this is important. If you're sitting there thinking, okay, so every penny could be worth something, that's not the message. The real message is sharper. Most people never check carefully enough to even find the small percentage that matters. And that small percentage is where life-changing stories begin. Now let's go into identification, because this is where attention turns into action. If you ever come across a 2003 Lincoln penny, you want to observe it closely under good lighting. Look at the mint mark area below the date. Check for unusual absence, misalignment, or signs that something was altered or struck incorrectly. Then examine the coin's surface. Does it show doubling in the lettering? Does the strike look unusually sharp or unusually weak compared to standard pennies? These subtle signals matter more than people realize. And here's a pattern interrupt for you. Imagine this coin is like a celebrity in disguise. It doesn't show up with a spotlight. It doesn't announce itself. It blends in, just like a famous actor wearing a hoodie in a grocery store, waiting for someone to actually notice. Now let's talk urgency. Not panic, but awareness. Coins like this don't improve in value sitting forgotten in jars. They circulate, they get damaged, they get lost. The longer they remain unidentified, the lower the chance they survive in collectible condition. That is why serious collectors and dealers consistently recommend reviewing old change, inherited coin collections, and even bankrolls. Because opportunity doesn't always arrive as something new. Sometimes it's already been in your home for years. And now we enter the final act, the transformation. Picture this: you take a coin that cost 1 cent. You identify something unusual. You confirm it with proper grading channels. Suddenly, that coin is no longer just currency. It becomes an asset, a conversation piece, a potential financial shift. And whether it reaches a modest premium or enters the extreme high-value collector tier, the mindset shift is the real reward. You stop seeing money as only what you earn and start seeing value in what you overlook. That is how wealthy collectors think. Not by chasing everything, but by recognizing what others ignore. So here's the final question I want to leave you with. If you went through your change today, just today, how confident are you that you wouldn't overlook something extraordinary? Because somewhere between ordinary and exceptional is a single coin. A 2003 Lincoln penny. Possibly no mint mark. Possibly something more. And in rare cases discussed among collectors, potentially a life-changing discovery. The difference between someone who finds it and someone who never knows it existed is not luck. It is attention. And now that you know what to look for, you can never unsee it again. Today you are about to discover something that most Americans walk past every single day without ever realizing. That a simple penny sitting in an old jar, a forgotten drawer, or even inside a couch cushion could potentially change everything. Because what you are looking at right now is not just pocket change. It could be a rare 2000 Lincoln penny with a no mint mark error that some collectors and listings have reportedly valued as high as $765,000 under exceptional conditions. And before you dismiss that as unbelievable, ask yourself this. What if the next coin you touch is the one that separates an ordinary life from a financially transformed one? Let's begin with something uncomfortable but true. Most people in the United States over the age of 30 have coins lying around their home right now that they have never properly checked. And that simple neglect is exactly why rare coins continue to slip through everyday hands unnoticed. The 2000 Lincoln penny, especially those with unusual minting characteristics, has become one of those modern-day silent opportunities that collectors are aggressively hunting. And here's the part that should grab your attention immediately. These aren't ancient coins locked away in museums. These are coins from your lifetime. Coins that pass through vending machines, gas stations, and grocery stores. Now imagine this for a second. You are sitting at your kitchen table, casually sorting coins from an old jar. Nothing special, just pennies. And then you pause. One coin looks slightly different. Maybe the strike is unusual. Maybe the surface looks doubled. Maybe something feels off. That small moment of curiosity could be the difference between a 1-cent coin and a life-changing collectible. Sounds dramatic? Good. Because the truth often is. Let's enter Act 1 of this story. The overlooked opportunity. The year 2000 was not considered historically significant in coin collecting at the time. Billions of Lincoln pennies were minted, most of them at the Philadelphia Mint with no mint mark. For decades, they were treated as common, everyday currency. But here is where things get interesting. In rare cases, minting errors occurred. These include misstrikes, die errors, off-metal anomalies, and unusual planchet variations that were never meant to enter circulation. And when those mistakes escaped the mint, they became treasures. Now here's a question you might not expect. How many coins in your home right now have never been truly examined under proper light or magnification? If you just laughed and thought, probably all of them, you are exactly the audience this message is for. Because Act 1 is about awakening awareness. And once you see this opportunity, you cannot unsee it. Let's move into Act 2. The discovery and the demand. This is where things get powerful. The world of rare coin collecting is not a quiet hobby anymore. It is a high-stakes, global marketplace driven by auctions, private collectors, and investors who are constantly searching for anomalies. The 2000 Lincoln penny with rare mint errors has gained attention because modern error coins are increasingly difficult to find in circulation. People are pulling them out of bank rolls, inherited collections, and yes, even pocket change. And here is where emotion comes in. Excitement builds because suddenly the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Fear creeps in because you realize you may have already spent these coins without noticing. And urgency rises because every day, coins like this are being unknowingly lost back into circulation or melted down. Let's pause for a second. Imagine you find a penny. You think it is worth 1 cent, but someone else, somewhere else in the world, is willing to pay thousands, even hundreds of thousands, for that exact mistake. Now ask yourself, who is in control in that situation? The person spending the coin or the person who knows what to look for? And yes, some rare listings and collector reports have suggested that extraordinary error examples of the 2000 Lincoln cent could reach valuation figures as high as $765,000 under perfect conditions, certification, and auction demand. That number is not typical. It is not average. But it represents the extreme ceiling of what scarcity and collector competition can do when the right coin appears at the right time. Now let's interrupt this for a moment, because I need you to stay with me here. Quick question. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny and thought, this could be worth a house? Probably never. That's exactly the mindset gap that separates collectors from everyone else. Now back to the story. The real power of this coin is not just in its minting error. It is in its accessibility. Unlike ancient coins that require deep historical expertise, this is modern US currency. That means anyone can find it. Retirees, working professionals, even teenagers, if they know what to look for. And that is where the opportunity becomes both exciting and dangerous. Exciting because it is accessible. Dangerous because most people will ignore it. Let's enter Act 3. Transformation and action. This is where everything connects. Because knowledge alone is not enough. Awareness alone is not enough. Action is what turns possibility into reality. Every serious collector will tell you the same thing. The biggest profits in rare coins do not come from luck. They come from consistency, attention, and timing. Think about the emotional weight of that for a moment. Somewhere in your home, there could be coins that others would pay life-changing money for. And yet, they remain unnoticed because they look ordinary. That word, ordinary, is the most expensive word in the world of collectibles, because it hides extraordinary value in plain sight. Now let's bring this home with clarity. The 2000 Lincoln penny no-mint mark coin errors are not guaranteed jackpots, but they are part of a growing category of modern rarities that collectors actively pursue. And when demand rises while supply stays fixed or disappears entirely, value can increase dramatically. That is basic market behavior. And in rare coin collecting, behavior like that creates opportunities that feel almost unbelievable to outsiders. Here is another pattern interrupt for you. If you had been told in the year 2005 that a penny from the early 2000s could one day be worth more than a luxury home, would you have believed it? Probably not. Yet here we are, in a world where collectors continuously redefine value based on rarity, condition, and demand. And now we reach the turning point. Because this is not just about coins. It is about mindset. It is about seeing value where others see nothing. It is about understanding that wealth is often hidden in the most ignored places. The people who win in this space are not necessarily the richest or the most educated. They are the most observant, so the next time you hear coins jingling in your pocket or sitting in a jar on a shelf, don't dismiss them. Look closer. Because the difference between a penny and a fortune is sometimes just a detail that most people never bother to notice. And as we close this story, I want you to carry one final thought with you. Somewhere right now, someone is discovering a rare coin that will change their financial future. The only question is, why not you? Stay alert, stay curious, and above all, never underestimate what is already in your hands. In the quiet corners of American pocket change history, there exists a story that most people walk right past without ever noticing. A simple 1-cent coin, the kind that might be sitting in a jar on a kitchen shelf or tucked away in an old drawer, has quietly become one of the most talked about pieces in modern coin collecting. And today, what you are about to hear could completely change the way you look at every penny you own. Because hidden within the world of U.S. coinage is a rare variety of the 1979 Lincoln penny, a no-mint mark anomaly that collectors and investors have been chasing with growing intensity. In some reported high-grade and rare error conditions, examples tied to this variety narrative have been valued in extraordinary ranges, with figures reaching as high as $823,000 in certain market discussions. Now, before you dismiss that as just another internet rumor, stay with me, because the real story is not just about the number. It is about opportunity, timing, and awareness. Imagine this for a moment. You are sitting at home going through an old coin jar, maybe something that belonged to a parent or grandparent. You are not thinking about millions. You are thinking maybe a few dollars, maybe enough for a coffee. And yet, in that very moment, your fingers could be holding a coin that serious collectors would fight over at auction. Does that sound unbelievable? That reaction right there is exactly why these coins are still being found today. Now let's step into Act 1 of this story, where everything begins with what appears to be something ordinary. The 1979 Lincoln penny was struck during a fascinating period in U.S. mint history. This was a time when production was massive, technology was evolving, and small variations were beginning to slip through the system. Most pennies from this year were minted in Philadelphia and Denver, with mint marks indicating their origin. However, the intrigue begins with a small number of coins that appear without a mint mark where one would typically expect it. For the untrained eye, it is nothing, just a penny. But for collectors, that absence can signal a deeper story involving transitional mint processes, die variations, or striking anomalies that create scarcity. And here is where it gets interesting. Scarcity is not just a coin collector's word. Scarcity is power. Scarcity is demand. Scarcity is what turns 1 cent into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Think about it for a second. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Now ask yourself this: what if one of them was the one everyone else missed? Let's pause here for a second, quick reality check. If you are already thinking, I've probably spent all my good coins already, don't worry, you are exactly the type of person this story is for. Because the biggest finds are not made by experts in laboratories. They are made by everyday people who simply decide to take a second look. And yes, even people who once thought coin collecting was just something old folks did. Moving into Act 2, this is where the tension builds. Because once awareness enters the picture, everything changes. The 1979 Lincoln penny with a missing or unusual mint mark attribution becomes more than just metal. It becomes a target of intense scrutiny in the numismatic world. Collectors begin examining strike quality, die characteristics, planchet conditions, and even microscopic details that separate a common penny from a life-changing one. And here is where emotion starts to take over logic. Fear enters first. The fear of missing out. The fear that somewhere, someone else is cashing in on something you unknowingly spent at face value. Then excitement follows, because suddenly, every coin in your possession becomes a potential discovery. Every handful of change becomes a possibility. It is almost funny how quickly perspective shifts. One moment you are ignoring pennies, the next you are holding them up to the light like you are in a treasure hunt movie. And if your family walks in and sees you doing this, yes, you will look slightly obsessed. But that is how fortunes are often discovered. Now let's add a pattern interrupt here. If coins could talk, imagine what your pocket change would say. Probably something like, "Hey, I'm not just a penny, you know?" And honestly, it would be right. Back to the story. The demand for rare Lincoln cent varieties has not slowed down. In fact, it has intensified as more collectors enter the market and supply remains fixed. That is an economic truth that never changes. When demand rises and supply stays limited, value does not just increase, it accelerates. And in some cases, it explodes. This is why certain high-grade examples of rare error pennies, including those associated with the 1979 no-mint mark discussion, have been referenced in extraordinary valuation conversations reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars. In top-tier collector circles, condition is everything. A coin that looks almost identical to another can be separated by thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars, simply based on preservation, strike clarity, and rarity markers. At this point, you might be asking yourself, why haven't I heard about this before? And that is exactly the point. Most people don't look closely enough. Most people assume value only exists in obvious places, real estate, stocks, gold. But history repeatedly proves something different. Wealth is often hidden in plain sight. Now we move into Act 3, where everything comes together. Because knowledge without action changes nothing. And here is the truth that seasoned collectors understand deeply. Opportunity does not announce itself twice. If there is even a chance that rare pennies are still circulating in old collections, inherited jars, or forgotten boxes, then awareness becomes your most powerful tool. Picture this outcome. A simple afternoon of checking coins turns into a discovery. That discovery leads to an appraisal. That appraisal leads to validation. And suddenly, something that once bought a single piece of gum is now connected to a life-changing financial moment. It sounds dramatic, but so do most success stories, until they happen to someone else. Let's be clear. Not every 1979 Lincoln penny is valuable. But the rare varieties, the anomalies, the coins with unique production quirks and collector demand behind them, are exactly what the market is hunting for. And right now, demand is strong, serious buyers are active, and high-value transactions are still happening quietly behind the scenes. So here is the final thought. If you are holding on to old coins, you are not just holding metal. You are holding possibility. And in a world where people are constantly searching for financial breakthroughs, sometimes the breakthrough is already sitting in your home, waiting to be noticed. Before we close, let me ask you something. If tomorrow you found out that a penny you ignored was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, would you feel relief or regret? That answer alone is why this story matters. Because wealth does not always arrive in loud ways. Sometimes it arrives in silence, in small copper discs, in forgotten change, and in moments where curiosity wins over assumption. And if you take nothing else from this video, take this. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is often just a second look. If you've ever tossed a penny into a jar, a drawer, or the cup holder of your car without a second thought, you may want to stop everything you're doing right now. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just another coin story, It's a hidden wealth opportunity that has quietly changed lives across the United States. And yes, it starts with something as ordinary as a 1978 Lincoln cent that appears to have no mint mark. Now here's the question that most people never think to ask. What if the coin you've been ignoring for decades is actually the key to a 5, 6, or even 7-figure payday? Sounds extreme, right? That's exactly why so many people miss it. They assume value is obvious. But in the world of rare coins, value hides in the smallest imperfections, and sometimes, in what's missing entirely. Let's begin with a simple truth that seasoned collectors already understand. The 1978 Lincoln penny is one of the most overlooked coins in modern American circulation. Billions were minted. It passed through hands, wallets, vending machines, and piggy banks for decades. Most of them are worth exactly 1 cent. But in rare, highly unusual cases, something happens at the US Mint that changes everything. A subtle error, a deviation, a flaw so small you'd need trained eyes or a lucky moment to catch it. And before you dismiss this as just another coin video, let me pause you for a second. If you're sitting there thinking, I've probably never seen anything valuable like that, ask yourself this. How many pennies have you actually looked at closely in the last 10 years? Be honest. Most people can't even remember the last time they examined one. And that's exactly where opportunity hides. Now, let's talk about the mystery that drives so much attention around the 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln cent. First, the basics. Pennies minted in Philadelphia typically do not carry a mint mark, which already confuses many people. But the real excitement comes when collectors believe they found anomalies. Coins struck with unusual characteristics, misalignments, double dies, or planchet errors that separate them from the billions of ordinary coins. Here's where things get interesting and a little intense. Because in rare cases, coins that appear completely ordinary at first glance have later been authenticated as high-value mint error specimens. And when I say high value, I'm talking about auction results and speculative listings that have reached extraordinary figures, sometimes even reported in the range of hundreds of thousands of dollars for exceptional verified error combinations. There have even been viral claims circulating about examples approaching the $900,000 plus range under highly specific conditions involving multiple rare minting anomalies. Now, are those everyday prices? Absolutely not. But in the world of numismatics, rarity is everything, and extreme rarity creates extreme demand. Let me stop you again for a moment, because this is important. Imagine this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, flipping through a handful of change, and you casually pick up a penny. To you, it looks normal. But to an expert, it could represent one of the most unusual production mistakes ever recorded in US coinage. That's not fantasy. That's the reality of error coin collecting. And here's where fear creeps in, not fear of danger, but fear of missed opportunity. Because once you learn what to look for, you'll never see pocket change the same way again. You'll start wondering, what did I already spend? Or, did I give away something valuable without knowing it? That feeling? That's exactly what drives collectors to dig deeper. Now let's break this down in a way that actually makes sense. Mint errors occur during the production process when something goes wrong at high speed. Coins are struck thousands per minute, and even the smallest mechanical issue can create a rare variation. Off-center strikes, missing design elements, weak strikes, die cracks, and planchet abnormalities can all transform an ordinary penny into a collectible asset. And yes, sometimes people laugh when they first hear this. A penny worth thousands? Millions? Really? But let me ask you something. If someone told you 20 years ago that a digital photo, a trading card, or even a piece of online code could sell for millions, would you have believed it then? The world of value evolves, and those who pay attention early always benefit the most. Now, let's shift into something even more important: recognition and urgency. Because the truth is, these coins are not sitting in vaults waiting for you. They are already in circulation, in jars, in estate collections, and in forgotten boxes in garages across America. Every day, coins are being spent, sold, or overlooked simply because no one took a second to verify them. That means the window of opportunity is not infinite. It shrinks with every passing transaction. But here's the exciting part. You don't need expensive equipment to begin. You need awareness. You need patience. And you need to train your eye to see what others ignore. That's the real advantage. Not luck, not connections, Just attention to detail. Let's pause again for a quick reality check. When was the last time you thought a penny could change your financial future? It sounds almost ridiculous until you realize that entire industries are built on identifying overlooked value. Real estate, antiques, art, collectibles, it all works the same way. Find what others miss and you find opportunity. As we move into the final part of this story, here's what you need to understand. The reason coins like the 1978 Lincoln cent with unusual characteristics attract so much attention is not just because they are rare, but because collectors actively compete for them. Auctions, private sales, and certified grading services all play a role in determining final value. And when competition rises, so does price. This is where wealth thinking comes in. Not speculation, but awareness. The ability to recognize that value is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's sitting in your hand right now. And if you take anything from this, let it be this moment of clarity. You don't need to find $1 million coin to benefit from this knowledge. Even identifying moderately rare coins can lead to meaningful profits. But the key is action, checking, learning, paying attention to what others ignore. So here's your final thought. The next time you receive change, whether at a store, a gas station, or even from a family member, don't dismiss it automatically. Look closer, because somewhere in that ordinary moment, there could be something extraordinary waiting to be discovered. And maybe, just maybe, the difference between a forgotten penny and a life-changing discovery is simply the decision to look. If you have an old penny sitting in a jar, a drawer, or even forgotten in a box in the garage, you might want to pay very close attention right now. Because what I'm about to reveal about a 1973 Lincoln penny with no mint mark could completely change the way you look at everyday change forever. This is not just another coin story. This is a story of overlooked fortune, silent mistakes, and the kind of discovery that has turned ordinary people into overnight success stories. In today's market, certain rare 1973 Lincoln cents, especially those without a mint mark and carrying specific minting errors, have been discussed in collector circles and high-end auction environments at values that can reach astonishing levels. Some exceptional specimens, in top-grade condition with verified rare errors, have been reported in discussions and listings as high as $765,000. Now, whether you believe that number or not, the truth is this: the demand for rare error pennies from the 1970s is rising fast, and serious collectors are actively hunting them right now. And here's the real question you should be asking yourself: what if one of these coins is already in your possession and you just never noticed? The year is 1973. The United States Mint is producing billions of Lincoln pennies to keep up with circulation demand. The Philadelphia Mint, responsible for coins without a mint mark, is operating at full speed. In high-volume production like this, mistakes are not just possible. They are inevitable. And in the world of coin collecting, mistakes are where fortunes are born. Now imagine this. A penny, identical to millions of others at first glance, slips through the system with a subtle but critical error. No mint mark where collectors expect precision. A misstrike, a doubling of design elements, a flaw so small it goes unnoticed in circulation, but so significant that decades later, collectors are willing to pay life-changing money for it. Pause for a second and think about that. You could have spent it on candy, coffee, a bus ride, and today it could be worth more than a luxury car, maybe even more than a house. But here's where most people make a mistake. They assume all 1973 pennies without a mint mark are valuable. That is not true. And this is where knowledge becomes power. Let's break the illusion for a moment. Just slightly, but stay with me. Not every 1973 Lincoln cent is rare. The Philadelphia Mint did not use mint marks at that time, so no mint mark alone is normal. However, what creates explosive value is when that coin carries a rare minting error. We're talking about double die obverse effects where the lettering appears slightly shadowed or duplicated. We're talking about off-center strikes where Lincoln's profile looks shifted. We're talking about dramatic planchet errors, striking anomalies, and unusual surface formations that should not exist in standard production. And here's where things start getting exciting. Collectors in today's market are not just looking for coins. They are hunting for stories. They are competing for scarcity. And when a verified 1973 Lincoln penny with a major mint error hits the market in high-grade condition, bidding wars can escalate rapidly. In rare documented cases, elite-grade error cents have been associated with valuations reaching into the hundreds of thousands of dollars range in specialized auctions and private sales discussions. Now imagine being the person who realizes that coin is sitting in their collection right now. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at a penny under strong light and really studied it? Not casually, not quickly, but deliberately, like a detective looking for evidence. Because that is exactly what separates people who find value from people who miss it completely. Here's a simple mental shift. Stop thinking of pennies as money. Start thinking of them as historical production records. Every mark, every imperfection, every slight deviation tells you a story about how it was made. And sometimes, that story is worth far more than face value. One of the most sought-after variations among collectors is the double die obverse. On a 1973 Lincoln cent, this can appear in the words, "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." Under magnification, you may see a slight but unmistakable doubling effect. Another major indicator is die clash marks, where the front and back dies struck each other without a coin in between, leaving ghost-like impressions on the surface. And here's the emotional truth most people overlook. These coins were not meant to survive as treasures. They were mistakes. They were supposed to disappear into circulation. But somehow, a few survived. And that survival is exactly what makes them powerful in today's collector economy. The coin market is not slowing down. In fact, as more collectors enter the space and as online auctions expand globally, competition for rare U.S. coins is intensifying. That means coins that were once overlooked are now being aggressively pursued. What sold for a few dollars decades ago can now command thousands, or in extraordinary cases, far more. And here is where your attention matters most. If you have inherited coins, old collections, jars of pennies, or anything stored away from decades past, you are potentially sitting on unexamined assets. Most people never check. Most people never look closely. And that is exactly why opportunity still exists. Let's shift into the final act. Because this is where everything comes together. If you suspect you have a 1973 Lincoln penny with a potential error, the first step is simple but powerful. Examine it under good lighting or magnification. Look for doubling in the lettering. Look for unusual spacing. Look for anything that feels off compared to a normal penny. Then, the real move is authentication. Professional grading services exist specifically to verify rarity and condition, and that step alone can be the difference between a few cents and a life-changing valuation. But beyond money, there is something deeper happening here. This is about awareness. This is about not overlooking what others discard. It is about understanding that wealth is often hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough, patient enough, and informed enough to recognize it. And maybe that is the real lesson of the 1973 Lincoln penny. Because while most people will continue to spend them without a second thought, a small number of people will stop, look closer, and realize they are holding something far more powerful than they ever imagined. So the question is not whether these coins exist. Because in the world of rare coins, timing, knowledge, and attention to detail are everything. And sometimes, the smallest coin in your hand can open the biggest door in your financial future. If you have ever held a handful of old coins and thought, "This is probably just pocket change," you might want to pause for a moment, because what I'm about to share could completely change the way you look at that small copper penny sitting in your drawer, your jar, or even your old coin collection passed down from family. There is a specific coin that has been quietly gaining attention among collectors and serious investors across the United States. The 1964 Lincoln penny, especially certain rare error versions. And while most people would dismiss it as just another 1-cent coin, some of these extraordinary error specimens have reportedly reached values as high as $799,000 in specialized collector markets. Yes, nearly $1 million for a single penny that once bought a piece of gum. Now, before you shrug this off as too good to be true, stay with me, because this is exactly where most people make their biggest financial mistake. Ignoring what looks ordinary, while the wealthy and informed are actively searching for it. Imagine this. You are sitting at your kitchen table going through an old jar of coins. Pennies, nickels, maybe a few silver-colored coins mixed in. You're about to hand them over to a bank coin machine for a few dollars in exchange. But what if I told you that in that exact moment, you could unknowingly be giving away a coin worth more than a luxury home? It sounds dramatic, almost unbelievable, right? But that's the reality of rare coin collecting. And the 1964 Lincoln penny error is one of those hidden stories that continues to shock even experienced collectors. Here's the twist that most people don't know. The 1964 Lincoln penny was minted in Denver, and while billions were produced, a small number of error variations exist, coins with unusual striking issues, misaligned dies, and in some cases, highly unusual metal composition anomalies that slipped through quality control. These imperfections, which would normally be considered mistakes, are exactly what transforms an ordinary penny into a high-value collector's prize. And here is where things get interesting, because in the world of numismatics, perfection is not always valuable. Imperfection is where the real money lies. Let me ask you something. If you had two identical-looking pennies in your hand, and I told you one was worth 1 cent and the other could fund your retirement, would you be able to tell the difference in under 10 seconds? Most people can't. And that hesitation, that moment of doubt, is exactly what creates opportunity in this market. Now, let's break the pattern for a second. You might be thinking, okay, but how many of these could possibly exist? Fair question. And here's the unsettling truth. No one knows the exact number. Some of these error coins were never properly documented, meaning they could still be sitting in circulation, hidden in collections, or even stored in coffee cans in garages across America. That's the part that should make you sit up a little straighter. Because while most people assume rare coins are locked away in museums or elite auctions, the reality is far more surprising. They often start their journey in everyday homes. Now let's move into the turning point. Collectors and investors don't chase pennies because they need small change. They chase them because of what those pennies represent: scarcity, history, and opportunity. And when a 1964 Lincoln penny with a rare mint error surfaces in verified condition, competition can become intense. Bidding wars have been known to escalate quickly, especially when multiple collectors recognize a rare strike or anomaly. This is where emotion takes over logic in the marketplace. A coin that once seemed irrelevant suddenly becomes the center of a financial storm, with serious buyers competing aggressively to secure it. And here's a pattern interrupt for you. Imagine walking into a room full of people arguing over a penny. Sounds ridiculous? It happens more often than you think in high-level coin auctions. Now let's talk about why this matters to you specifically. If you are someone who has spent years building savings, working hard, and looking for ways to preserve or even grow your wealth, this is not just a hobby topic. This is an awareness opportunity. Because wealth is often not created by working harder, it is created by recognizing value where others see none. And that brings us to the most critical part of this story: the selling market. Right now, rare U.S. coins, especially mint error pennies, are in high demand among private collectors, auction houses, and specialized dealers. The demand is driven by a growing awareness that physical, historical assets often outperform expectations during uncertain economic cycles. In simple terms, when confidence in traditional markets fluctuates, tangible collectibles gain attention. And that creates urgency, because coins like the 1964 Lincoln penny error are not being produced anymore. Every year that passes, more of them are lost, damaged, or unknowingly spent, which means the surviving examples become even more valuable over time. So let me ask you something directly. How many pennies have you casually spent in the last month without a second thought? What if one of them was the kind that collectors actively search for today? This is why timing matters. The difference between someone who casually ignores their change and someone who evaluates it carefully can be life-changing. There are documented cases where ordinary individuals discovered rare pennies and transformed them into 5-figure, 6-figure, and in extremely rare cases, even higher value outcomes through auction channels. Now let's bring this story to its peak. The 1964 Lincoln penny error isn't just about money. It represents something deeper. It represents hidden opportunity in plain sight. It represents the idea that value is not always loud, obvious, or advertised. Sometimes it is sitting quietly in your hand, waiting for you to recognize it. And here is the final emotional truth. The biggest losses in life are not always the risks we take. They are the opportunities we fail to notice. So if you take anything from this video, let it be this: slow down when you see old coins. Look closer. Question what others overlook. Because in a world where most people rush past value, the real advantage belongs to those who stop and examine it. And who knows, your next penny might not just be change. It might be a turning point. In the quiet corners of American history, Sometimes the most ordinary objects carry the most extraordinary secrets. And right now, sitting in jars, drawers, old cigar boxes, and forgotten inheritance collections across the United States, there may be a small copper coin that could completely change someone's financial future. A simple 1-cent Lincoln penny. Specifically the 1962 D Lincoln cent with a rare minting error that has captured the attention of collectors and serious investors alike. But here's the question that should immediately grab your attention. What if the next coin you casually dismiss as just a penny is actually part of a highly sought-after rarity that some market discussions and listings have placed in the extraordinary range of hundreds of thousands of dollars? And yes, in certain rare error scenarios, figures as high as $711,000 have circulated in collector conversations and speculative valuations tied to extreme condition anomalies and unique mint errors. Now imagine that for a moment, a penny worth more than a luxury home. And before you shrug this off, don't, because this is exactly how most life-changing discoveries are missed. Not because they aren't real, but because they don't look special at first glance. It's 1962. The United States is in the middle of economic transformation. Post-war prosperity is in full swing, and the Denver Mint is striking billions of coins to keep up with demand. Among them is the Lincoln cent, marked with a small D mint mark, produced in massive quantities. To the untrained eye, it is the definition of ordinary. A coin so common that millions still exist today. But here's where the story takes a turn, because not every coin leaves the mint perfect. Some coins are struck under unusual pressure conditions. Some are struck with die misalignments. Some are struck with double dies or subtle minting mistakes so small they go unnoticed for decades. And in rare cases, those imperfections become the very reason a coin becomes a fortune. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you really looked at the pennies in your possession? Not glanced, but actually inspected them. Because this is where most people lose out. They think wealth looks loud. But in coin collecting, wealth is often silent. And just like that, we move into Act 2, discovery. The 1962 D Lincoln penny becomes fascinating not because of its face value, but because of its potential error variations. Certain specimens have been reported with striking anomalies, repunched mint marks, die clashes, double die features, and exceptionally rare strike conditions. When these errors appear in high-grade, uncirculated condition, their value can rise dramatically due to collector demand and scarcity. Now pause for a second. Imagine holding something worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and not even knowing it. It's almost funny, isn't it? You could buy coffee with it, or you could accidentally be holding generational wealth. And here's a question that might make you sit up a little straighter. What if you've already spent one? That moment of realization is exactly why collectors and investors treat coins like historical stock certificates. Because they are not just currency. They are time-stamped artifacts of manufacturing history. Now let's add another layer of urgency. The market for rare U.S. error coins is not slowing down, it's accelerating. Wealthy collectors, private investors, and auction houses continue to compete aggressively for high-grade Lincoln cents with verified mint errors. Certification services like PCGS and NGC play a crucial role in validating authenticity, and once a coin is graded and confirmed as a rare error, its value can increase exponentially. And yes, this is where the excitement turns into something real. Because this is no longer just coin talk. This is a market where small discoveries can create massive financial shifts. But let's reset for a moment because I don't want you drifting off thinking this is all abstract. Quick question. If I handed you a penny right now and said it could be worth a house, would you treat it differently? Of course you would. That's the psychology of value. It doesn't change the object, it changes your attention. Now back to the coin. The most desirable 1962 D Lincoln penny variations typically share one thing in common: rarity combined with condition. Coins that are uncirculated, sharply struck, and free of environmental damage tend to command the highest attention. When combined with a verified mint error, the interest from collectors can escalate quickly. And here's the emotional truth most people never hear. The biggest obstacle to finding valuable coins is not scarcity, it's awareness. Most people simply never look closely enough. That's the hidden opportunity. Now we enter Act 3, realization and action. Because knowledge alone is not enough. At some point, you have to act on it. If you have old penny jars, inherited collections, or even loose change that has been sitting untouched for years, This is where your attention becomes valuable. You are no longer just sorting coins, you are evaluating potential assets. And in rare cases, those assets can reach valuations that sound almost unbelievable at first glance. This is where stories of six-figure and even seven-figure coin discoveries begin. Not in auctions, not in museums, but in ordinary homes where someone finally decided to take a closer look. And let's be honest, there's a certain thrill in that, isn't there? The idea that something so small could hold such weight. It's almost like finding a hidden door in your own house that you never noticed before. But here's the key takeaway, and listen carefully. Authentic value in the coin world is always verified, never assumed. Professional grading, expert evaluation, and market comparison are what transform curiosity into confirmed worth. So if you ever find a 1962 D Lincoln cent that looks unusual, slightly off, or simply too well preserved to be ordinary, that is your moment to pause, not spend. Because this is where opportunity lives, in the intersection of attention, timing, and knowledge. And now, as we close, I want you to think about something simple but powerful. Most people spend their lives searching for financial breakthroughs in complicated places, stocks, businesses, investments. But sometimes, the entry point to opportunity is already sitting in a jar on a shelf, so the next time you hear someone say, "It's just a penny," you might smile a little differently because now you know, sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest stories. And maybe, just maybe, the next life-changing discovery is already in your hands.